What's up everybody, Matt Moran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of news to go over here this week, lots of new debuts, and a lot of it is just because of CES. So the Consumer Electronics Show is going on this week, and with a lot of cars being electric, a lot of the car companies are really taking over CES in a lot of ways. And so lots of exciting debuts here. First off, Chevy has fully revealed the 2024 Silverado EV. And so it's called a Silverado, but it shares nothing with the gas-powered version, and it's on GM's Ultium platform, meaning actually it shares more with the Hummer EV than it does with the Silverado. So the specs definitely aren't as crazy as the Hummer, but they're still impressive nonetheless. So the only version available in retail for retail customers for the 2024 model year is the RST trim, which will do 664 horsepower and 780 pound-feet of torque. There will also be a work truck version available only for fleet buyers for the 2024 model year. That one does 510 horsepower and 615 pound-feet of torque, and that should hint at what might be available in the lower trims of the Silverado EV that will be coming for the 2025 model year and beyond. They already have even teased a trail bus trim that is going to be coming, for example, in 2025, and there will of course be many more trims, I'm sure, as well. Other impressive specs here, though, are that it has a 4.5 second 0 to 60 time for the RST trim, thanks to a sport mode called Wide Open Watts, or WOW for short, which is clever. And at launch, the only battery available will offer over 400 miles of range, but no exact battery size was shared. My guess is that it could be the same pack from the Hummer, meaning it's like a massive, almost like 200 kilowatt hour battery pack. That would certainly, probably be what's needed to get 400 miles of range in a truck, considering like the Lightning only does 300 miles of range. So it's going to be an impressive battery for sure. It's also pretty impressive because it can actually do 350 kilowatt fast charging, so it can recharge much faster than the 150 kilowatt charging the F-150 Lightning can do. And actually, I'm driving the Ioniq 5 this week, and that also has that same 350 kilowatt charging. And like a 10 to 80% charge, and that thing is like 18 minutes versus like 45 minutes in a Mach-E. So that could be a huge thing for towers and road trippers in the Silverado over the Lightning, is having that much faster recharge time. Also, the Silverado EV is going to have four-wheel steering, which is another thing the Lightning can't match. And like the Lightning, though, the RST can tow 10,000 pounds, but payload is only 1,300 pounds, which is a good bit lower than the Lightning, which I think does like 1,700 and up. And in that bed, though, in the Silverado EV here, you do get one very cool feature that the Lightning also can't match, which is a mid-gate, which lengthens the bed by folding down into the cabin there, and it's a 60-40 split as well, so you can still have one or two passengers depending on how long and how wide the object is you want to put through the cabin there. But that's a pretty cool party trick. And in addition to that, the bed is a pretty standard size, being just a tiny bit longer than a regular Silverado short bed. The Silverado EV also has a pretty large frunk. The Chevy claims can fit 3 suitcases, although it looks a tiny bit smaller than the Lightning frunk possibly, but it's also a power frunk, by the way. The interior is also much more spacious than a regular Silverado, thanks to a shorter front end that allowed the cabin to grow while still maintaining pretty similar dimensions to the gas truck overall as far as exterior dimensions. But you can see that whole cab area is much larger than it is on a normal gas-powered truck there, and that's the big advantage here of the electric stuff for sure, is having a lot more space inside. And the interior is a little more conservative than the Hummer, and even compared to the Lightning, it's a little bit more conservative. But you still get a 16-inch screen in the RST version. The work truck version will get a smaller screen and a more simpler interior, of course. Also expect a more luxurious version to come in 2025 or later as well, because there's no like wood trim or anything. There's going to be a loaded up luxurious version at some point. So, look for that probably for the 2025 model year. But even this RST version, speaking of luxury, this thing's going to have a luxury car price tag, even just in the RST trim. They revealed it's going to be starting at $105,000 before destination. And so this seems especially high, not only just because you can get a fully loaded Lightning, which yes has slower charging and is slower, and has a bunch of other compromises, doesn't have four-wheel steering and all that kind of stuff, but still those max out at like 92 grand or so. I mean, this is 105 is a good jump even beyond 92, and also a Hummer EV is only 7 grand more for the Hummer EV truck. So I don't know. I feel like the Hummer still looks cooler. The Hummer still has like crab walk and all these other crazy features, and has way more power. The Hummer, you can get 100 or 1,000 horsepower out of that thing for 7 grand more. Like, in that context, why wouldn't you get the Hummer for $7,000 more? When you're talking about six-figure cars, what's $7,000? Go for the Hummer. Why would you get the Silverado? So I don't know. I feel like, they kind of, I get that, it's going to be expensive and stuff, and there will be cheaper versions, they keep saying. And they even mentioned, by the way, that the work truck version, the base version of that, will be landing around $40,000 whenever it finally does go on sale for retail customers, which will come, I think, for 2025. So yeah, they say, there's going to be smaller batteries, less power in 2025 as well. That will bring down the pricing, again, to be similar to that, $40,000 starting price. So I think they're going to be pretty close to the Lightning when it's all said and done. It's just that they really went crazy with the performance and the specs here on this top version. So anyway, they'll be starting production of the work trucks actually first. Those will be starting in spring of 2023 for fleet customers, with the RSTs starting production for, normal consumers in the fall of 2023. So still got a ways to go for those. Ford, on the other hand, just announced this week that not only are they they already have pre-production running for the Lightning, but they also announced that they're doubling Lightning production again. They just doubled it a few weeks back. Now they're planning to double it again to 150,000 units per year of the Lightning to keep up with demand. So again, a lot of people are like, oh, no one wants electric vehicles. 150,000 Lightnings a year are going to be churned out here, and every one of them is going to be sold, at least for the first year or two. So seems like there are definitely several 100,000 people for sure into electric vehicles, in addition to all the other people driving around them currently. I think Tesla 2021 sold like over 300,000 cars or something like that. So lots of electric stuff out there. It really is gaining momentum here. And unfortunately, most of the stories this week, by the way, are going to be on electric vehicles, since that's what everything was at CES. So fair warning, use the timestamps in the description if you want to jump to the non-EV stuff towards the end of this video. But anyway, yeah, very interesting to see that. But Chevy, that wasn't the end of it. They also surprised us by showing off a couple teaser images here of the Equinox EV that they say is going to be going on sale in the fall of 2023, and also followed up by just saying and confirming that a Blazer EV is coming in early 2024. We don't have any images of the Blazer, unfortunately. So we'll see, what they do with that. But I'm sure it's going to be, not the off-road kind of Blazer everyone's hoping for. But anyway, they're both also going to be on the Ultium platform. And Chevy says the Equinox EV is going to be starting around $30,000. That could be the biggest news of all from CES. The first, newer EV here that actually is going to have solid range and stuff starting around $30,000 before the tax credits, which, will come in to make it basically a low $20,000 vehicle. Again, a base stripped down version, which might not be very nice inside. But if you want an EV for $30,000, Chevy's going to have an option for you here, relatively soon. And considering the average new car price here by the end of 2021 was over $40,000, you're now coming in under the average new car price. I think this could make EVs a lot more, attainable for a lot more people. But anyway, Chevy says about the Equinox EV that they're providing an affordable EV option in the industry's highest volume segment, and this proves that Chevy is going to make EVs available to everyone. And the ones they did show, by the way, were an LT and an RS trim, so they weren't like top trims, and it still looked pretty nice inside there from what we can see. So hopefully we see the Blazer EV soon, but very interesting to hear all that. The last GM reveal that they showed off with Cadillac, actually, they showed the InnerSpace concept, which looks so cool. It's this very cool electric coupe that's supposed to kind of show what an autonomous electric Cadillac could be like if they were brave enough to make another, grand two-door coupe someday. Yeah, it looks fantastic. Obviously, this is a concept, but I could see, some of the cues here working their way into production cars from Cadillac down the road, especially like the Celestiq, which is going to be the grand four-door thing. It's going to be $200,000 or whatever. I could see that adopting some of these styling cues possibly. The roof is definitely the one part that will be staying concept only, though, because it's crazy with just how low it is and how it's almost like separate from the lower half of the car there. And also just how low it is in general, just getting in and out of it. It's not a vehicle you could really realistically drive very well. You can see there's big screens and stuff kind of blocking the view of the driver, or I guess passenger, because since it's fully autonomous, none of that stuff is supposed to matter in this hypothetical world. But the roof actually on this thing is pretty sweet because it moves up and down to allow easier entry and exit into the vehicle. And also on top of that, the seats swivel, and that is a really cool touch. Throws back to the 50s and 60s. A lot of the Mopar stuff, especially, that had this swiveling seats. was a very, very cool touch, especially designed. It was designed for, ladies wearing dresses and stuff back then, but it's just so cool. I don't know. I'm a sucker for any kind of retro throwbacks like that. And so the fact that Cadillac made a new concept car with swiveling seats really, is a fun little touch to me. So anyway, very cool to see that InnerSpace concept. And remember over the past year or so here, whenever Sony had made the Vision S concept, and it was like this production-ready, super polished car that they were actually road testing, and they legalized it, and they did all these things, and then they were like, oh, we're not building that. We're just exploring like how we could use the sensors in other cars for other people and stuff. If you watch these weekly updates every week, I was calling BS on this whole thing from the very beginning. I'm like, they're going to sell this thing. There's no way they're putting this much money into fully engineering a car and then having it never go anywhere. And sure enough, it turns out that we were right here. So Sony this week, not only did they confirm that they're setting up a mobility division to actually, they say, explore entry into the EV market, but also they debuted a second model at CES here, an SUV called the Vision S02. And so they say that in March, they will be setting up this Sony mobility company. But they showed both the sedan and the SUV here side by side at the show, and it doesn't appear like the sedan has really changed at all, if anything, but it's clear that from the SUV at least, that Sony plans to continue with the same styling language, clearly, since they're basically taking the Tesla approach of transplanting the sedan's features onto the SUV. Thankfully, I think that the features transfer much better in the Sony version than they do with Teslas. I think that this thing looks a lot better than a Model Y personally. But dimensionally, speaking of the Model Y, it's about 1 inch taller than a Model Y, while being about 5 inches longer. And like the sedan that Sony builds, it's on the same platform. The SUV runs a 268 horsepower electric motor on each axle, giving you over 500 horsepower potentially, and an air suspension. And of course, the big draw for the Sony car is the infotainment tech, and Sony doesn't disappoint there either, with the 3 huge screens on the dash, along with 1 lower screen for climate controls, and 2 screens, of course, for the rear occupants. And by the way, it even has a 3rd row, and this is hilarious. They even bothered to show us how the rear seats fold. If that's not a production car, I don't know what is. Like, what concept car is like, hey, look, we even figured out, how we're going to have the folding seats and stuff. A lot of the concept cars you see don't even have interiors. This thing not only has an interior that's production ready, basically, but they're showing you how the seats fold and everything else. Hands down, this thing's going to be on the market at some point. I don't know how soon it'll be, but this is ready to go. And it's kind of so funny. It's very modest of Sony to be like, oh, we don't know what we're going to do. And then it's like basically the perfect polished production car when Apple has been banging their head against the wall for the past 10 years trying to get a car out. And Sony just like quietly, nonchalantly is like, yeah, we have a car. Oh, we have an SUV too. Here you go. I don't know. Whoever's running the stuff behind the scenes of Sony here, I have to give them a round of applause for being incredibly modest with just how far along this thing is. Also, by the way, all those screens and stuff are all connected to the PlayStation Cloud, so you can, connect up wirelessly to your cloud at home and play whatever games you have there, on your PlayStation and stuff. So that's all, cool. Of course, that'll just be for the passengers, hopefully. And yeah, so there's no info on when we might be able to expect these, but I believe there was talks of Magnus Steyr potentially being the production partner. That was a while back. I'm not sure how accurate that is now, but, it's just, that's what they got to figure out is how they're going to build it, and then, how they're going to sell them and service them. Obviously, they'll probably just skip dealers. If they're smart, they would. And, just do the Tesla thing and sell them online. But as far as servicing them, that is something they need to, kind of figure out and come up with some kind of partnership or something if they want to actually roll this out as fast. Because it almost seems like the car is ready before the rest of the thing is. Like, you still got to have the service centers and stuff. Maybe they're secretly building service centers. We don't know about that either. And all of a sudden they'll be like, ta-da! All these Amazon warehouses we've been building are actually service centers and production facilities or something. I don't know. But at this point, anything's possible with Sony because they're just full of surprises here. And I'm just very impressed that they came up with a car this quickly. So anyway, very interesting to see that. And we'll see how that develops here. Maybe in March we'll get some more info. Chrysler this week has also had an exciting reveal here. They debuted the Airflow concept at CES. And It doesn't look quite production ready, but this is also very close to production. Just maybe swap out the side mirrors, maybe tone down the infotainment stuff a tiny bit, but that's about it. They say it's going to be likely arriving before 2025 because Chrysler, they didn't confirm that this is what's coming before 2025, but they say their first EV is coming by 2025 or before 2025. So this is the only EV thing that looks remotely close to, making that timeline. So I don't know why they're not coming out and saying that, but I think this is, going to be their first EV here. And I also just love they brought back the Airflow name. It's, totally relevant, totally fits, but you're not, completely trashing a name of some other vehicle that, you've been building for years and years. So I love that they brought back the Airflow name. And it looks nice and classy, even though the design isn't maybe quite as polarizing as a lot of the others that have been coming out. I like that Chrysler took the conservative approach and didn't clickbait people and upset people with styling just to get people's attention. I think this is going to be really great for those who do want to blend in, want an EV, but don't want, something super in your face. And so, yeah, you can see it's just really nice on the inside there, big infotainment screen. Although the screen does look like it's kind of tacked on compared to the other screens that are so nicely integrated there. But other than that, looks great. You can see there's some other cool touches like glass buttons on the steering wheel, a crystal shifter and start button. That could be concept-y stuff, but I feel like they could potentially bring that to production. Mechanically, the only details we have here on it are that it has a 201 horsepower motor on each axle for all-wheel drive, so 400 horsepower most likely, and they say the range will be between 350 miles and 400 miles, and it's going to be also having what they're calling STLA Auto Drive, which does the level 3 semi-autonomous driver assistance. And lastly, they're saying that Chrysler is going fully electric by 2028. So, not a huge surprise there. I mean, Chrysler has very few models. So that just basically means that whatever minivan they're building by 2028 will be electric. Who knows about the Chrysler 300? And then, this thing, of course. And so, anyway, very cool to see that. Another cool retro-inspired name that's going to be coming back here is Volkswagen's ID.Buzz, or possibly the bus, whatever they end up calling it. They did finally tease that it will be revealed fully on March 9th. So that's when we can get all the details on the new ID.Buzz, and I'm excited. That's another very cool thing. They're bringing back, the Volkswagen bus, and it's going to be awesome, I think. So very cool to see that. Hopefully they fix some of the dumb little things they did in the ID.4 interior and stuff and make it a little bit better. And then that thing will be awesome, especially if they lean into the retro thing. But cool to see that teaser. BMW this week at CES revealed a couple of different versions of the iX SUV. First off, we have the production one here called the M60, which is the faster version, basically. It adds nearly 100 horsepower onto the regular iX for a total of 610 horsepower and 811 pound-feet of torque now when it's in its Sport Boost mode, which enables a 3.6 second 0 to 60, which is about a half second quicker than before. And this is thanks to a 6-phase electric motor with dual power inverters. So that's how it gets that extra power. It runs the same battery and air suspension as the regular version, but BMW did give it bigger brakes and thicker anti-roll bars. And then the added performance, they say, does drop the range a bit. So it now does 280 miles of range instead of the 324 that the regular iX does. And the price also takes a big hit upwards. So it's now going to be starting over $20,000 more expensive at $106,095. And they should be arriving sometime this year, but that sounds like a tough sell to me because it's not like the regular iX is going to be slow, especially being electric. You get, the extra power is great and stuff, but for $20,000 extra and you take a big hit on range too, I don't know. We'll see how many of these things they sell, but that's, the one thing that they showed off. They also showed off the iX Flow concept, which uses an e-ink wrap that instantly changes between like white, black, and grayish, which is cool. It's basically, I think, kind of what like the same technology used on like a Kindle or something. It's cool they've integrated into a wrap and stuff, but that definitely is something that will not be coming to production anytime soon. And I feel like if people did want to have their car change colors, they'd want to do colors that aren't just white and black, but still a very cool little thing to show off here at CES nonetheless. And Mercedes at CES here revealed their Vision EQXX, which they say will never be put into production. So this is just a concept, but it was basically just used for them to learn more about efficiency for their future EVs and how to maximize efficiency. And it's very cool with that very aerodynamic shape. I honestly wish they'd build something that kind of looks like that because it's a little more out there, but I feel like it's very futuristic and people would totally buy that kind of a vehicle. And the efficiency is impressive, with Mercedes claiming 620 miles of range from a battery pack that's just only under 100 kilowatt hours. So, like Chevy is saying 400 miles with that Silverado, which most likely has double the battery pack that this thing has. So it shows you just how efficient this is. This means basically it's doing 6 miles per kilowatt hour, which also, to put in perspective, like the Mach-E, whenever I had that for a week, that did like 3.1 miles per kilowatt hour. So this is like double the efficiency of something like that. Obviously that was all-wheel drive and stuff. This is rear-wheel drive, but still, that's a very high efficiency number, so that's pretty impressive. Part of this is also thanks to the very low drag coefficient of 0.17 is the drag coefficient, which I believe even beats out, I think they said the EQS is like 0.2, so this is 0.17, so even better. The downside is this thing is pretty slow, only running a single 201 horsepower motor, and it's a vehicle that still weighs, I think they said, just under 4,000 pounds, so 200 horsepower isn't terrible, but still, not super quick. It's a very efficient motor, though, with Mercedes claiming 95% drivetrain efficiency, and that this motor could arrive in production EVs before 2025. So, one, that's very impressive, because usually there's a lot of drivetrain loss and stuff. So to have only 5% loss is very impressive, even for an EV. The battery pack is also more energy dense, being 30% lighter and taking up 50% less volume, which could really help them to fit, these larger, quote unquote, larger batteries in smaller vehicles and take up less space. And they say that this could actually arrive in production cars by 2024. So basically, just assume that the next generation of EVs that are coming here in just 2 years time will be incorporating a lot of this stuff. So you're gonna have more efficient motors, better battery packs, and this is just in a vehicle. I mean, the EQS just is now rolling out in the past couple of months, and 2 years from now they're going to start rolling out more efficient motors, most likely in the refresh version of the EQS or whatever. But still, I mean, just very quick advancements here with EVs, and there's even more advancements I'll get to in a minute here. But this is why when they start pouring money into this stuff to really explore it and improve it, it's going to get way better way quicker. And so, don't be discouraged by the lower ranges and stuff that you have currently in some other older EVs. But other things here, they also say that they're planning on adding solar roofs to the Mercedes models, some of them starting in 2024. Most likely, again, this is going to be for the upper six-figure Mercedes models and stuff like the EQS, but they're going to offer that. And in the EQXX here, they have a solar roof, and it adds 15.5 miles of range, but that's also because this thing is super efficient. So with a less efficient car, it might be maybe 10 miles or maybe a little bit less than that. But still a cool touch, especially if, paying the extra $5,000 for a solar roof just to have as a cool, bragging right kind of thing. On cars that are so expensive, it doesn't really matter if it doesn't pay off from a range to cost standpoint. It just could be a cool add-on and give you a slightly bit more range. I think it's kind of awesome that they're even going to be offering that, honestly. And so anyway, I will include the link in the description to all the nitty-gritty details on this thing, because that's just like glossing over the main bullet points of the EQXX. There's so many other things they went into with the frame, and I mean, there's a bunch of little holes they put all over the inside and stuff just to make it a tiny bit lighter and maximize everything that they can in this thing. And it's very impressive from an engineering standpoint, so very cool to see that. But unfortunately, Mercedes' little proud moment with their 620-mile range vehicle here was short-lived, because a 2-year-old startup company from Michigan is claiming that their prototype battery pack that they debuted here at CES managed to do 752 miles of range in a Tesla Model S, and they're aiming to have the battery in production by late 2023. And they just did this, like they actually already tested it, and they just did 752 miles. They also claim it's going to be built in North America this battery, and they say they believe it can be done economically, saying it could be even less expensive than current batteries. Now these are big, promising, bold claims, so we'll see if this all does actually turn out to be actually doable. But the battery is also, they say, safer, uses more sustainable materials, and totally eliminates the use of nickel and cobalt. So those worried about the mining stuff, this is going to greatly improve that situation as well. It's also important to note that this test, by the way, when they got to 752 miles, was done in December in Michigan. And anyone that knows anything about electric cars knows that the range drops big time whenever it's cold out. So either their chemistry with the battery chemistry here in this is more resilient to that, or this is an underrated and 752 miles is conservative, and in ideal conditions, maybe this thing would do, even more than that. So either way, I mean, I'm very, very impressed with that. It all sounds pretty promising. And if they can deliver on those promises and get this thing into production in less than 2 years, which is what they're, claiming here, this could be the big game changer for EVs, at least for the next few years here. Everyone's been hoping for solid state stuff and that being the next promising thing. But if it's just 2 years from now, you can have 752 miles of range. I mean, that's going to really eliminate a lot of people's worries about range and recharging and all that kind of stuff. I mean, there's not even a diesel car on the road that I think does 750 miles of range. So, I mean, this will beat gas and diesel powered stuff. And they didn't say anything about recharge times here, but I'm hoping the battery chemistry, if it's still the same size that the battery fits in a Tesla, then it shouldn't take an eternity to recharge it either. So very, very impressive. And so this is the stuff I've been talking about, where a lot of people, have been commenting on the weekly updates and being like, oh, EVs aren't ready. And if you look at them with 2021 goggles and yes, the current situation, maybe, the infrastructure can't handle everyone switching to an EV tomorrow. Maybe it can't handle, all the battery demand and stuff. But, whenever you have these advancements, we've been talking about this stuff just a couple of years here. We've been working on electric vehicles, that these companies have made these huge advancements in just a few years' time. It's really just taking off with the advancements. And so this is why, whenever you hear 2035 all EV stuff, that might sound crazy to some, but whenever you have advancements like this happening every 2 years, it's 2035 might even be overly conservative. So we'll just have to wait and see how things play out. Anything could happen. This stuff could all, not happen. It could all just backfire. Who knows? But it all seems very, very promising, and so very cool that, we're making so many advancements so quickly. Anyway, the last two stories here are not about electric vehicles, so some of you might be thankful to hear that. So at least at Hyundai, though, the future is not all EVs. So last week, I talked about a report that was done by a Korean newspaper that claimed that Hyundai was going to be quitting developing gas engines. But this week, Hyundai shot that rumor down, along with the rumor that they're pausing hydrogen development. That also isn't true. And so in an interview with Motor One, Hyundai's senior group manager said Hyundai Motor Group can confirm that it is not halting the development of its engines following recent media speculation. The group is dedicated to providing a strong portfolio of powertrains to its global customers, which includes a combination of highly efficient engines and zero emissions electric motors. So there you have it. They're still going to be working on stuff. But, again, it's safe to assume they're not going to be doing stuff forever. It's just the way this whole thing is going, But I'm sure, they'll at least keep them around for, a good long while still, probably even into 2030 or so. But interesting to hear they are continuing to develop new gas engines still. And lastly, Koenigsegg teased a new car that will be debuting this year, claiming it'll have more ultimate performance and that it'll do this through clever engineering and optimal design. So that's all we have, then just the one little shadowy image there of a silhouette, and that's it. But anyway, very cool to at least get a little teaser there about that. But yes, that's it for all the news this week, guys. So let me know your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Thank you guys very much for watching. Please continue to stay safe and healthy out there, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.